Why are you here? The Buddha's existential lesson. The practice is a promise that you make to yourself. When you take on the precepts, nobody forces you. The Buddha himself doesn't force you, but you might say that your suffering forces you. You realize that you're suffering, and you've got to do something about it. If you just sit back and accept it, nothing's going to happen. You're certainly not on the path. The Buddha teaches a path where you do something about the problem of suffering. You look at what you're doing and you ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? He has you start with the precepts. There's that passage in the beginning of the Karanya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by those who appreciate the state of peace. I once sat in on a class being taught by someone else on that sutta, taking it apart line by line. As he got to the first line, a hand shot up. I thought there were no shoulds in Buddhism. The poor teacher had to spend the whole morning explaining how there could be a should in the Dhamma. It's really quite easy. If you want to put an end to suffering, if you appreciate the state of peace, this is what you've got to do. The should is conditional. Nobody's enforcing it, unless you enforce yourself. That's why the precepts require mindfulness, alertness, and ardency. You're mindful to keep the precept in mind. You're alert to see what you're actually doing. And if you see that your behavior is slipping away from the standard set by the precept, you have to be ardent in getting it back. Ardency here is basically another word for right effort. And an important part of right effort is generating desire, motivating yourself. This then applies to the practice of concentration. You don't just sit here letting the mind decide whether it's going to settle down on its own or not. You have to induce it. You have to direct it. Make up your mind that you're going to stay here and watch over it, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. Anything that comes in to pull you away from the breath right now, you've got to say, no, no, no. Sometimes you have to give yourself reasons. As you can imagine, discernment is also a promise you make to yourself. You could sit there and just bliss out in the concentration and decide, well, this is good enough for me. But then you have to remember what the Buddha said about fabricated happiness. The fact that you're sitting here with the mind quiet, nothing happening, is not going to last. Either something outside will come to disturb it, or you'll get tired of being quiet and still. So you want to remember that there's more work to be done. Even in a quiet mind, there are still little bits and blips of disturbance coming from within. The way the mind maintains that state of stillness contains all kinds of aggregates and mental events, acts of attention, acts of intention. There are many levels of conversation going on inside. You get one level still, and then, in the stillness, you begin to realize there's another conversation going on, more subtly. I've got to look into that. That's the proper attitude. So you've got to learn how to motivate yourself to stick with the promise you've made. The Buddha offers 3 ways of thinking about this. He calls them Adhipateyya, which means governing principles, what you want to have in charge of your mind. The first principle is yourself as a governing principle. You tell yourself, I came to this path. I got onto this path because I wanted to put an end to suffering. If I were to fall away, what does that say about what I think about myself? Am I really concerned about myself? Do I really have compassion for myself? Do I really love myself? Sometimes that thought is enough to get you back on the path. You realize that it is for your own good. And if you don't look after your own good, who's going to look after it for you? The world wants you to look after them. But here's something inside that they can't do for you. There are things that other people can do for you to help you. But doing the actual work inside, sticking with the precepts, getting the mind to settle down, and then looking deeper into that settled down mind, that's work that only you can do. And it's work that's got to be done. Think about those reflections that we chant so often. I'm subject to aging, illness, and death. Subject to separation from all that I love, and I've got my karma. Ajaan Suwat used to make a lot of that last statement. He said, there are so many things the Buddha says are not self, but then we get to karma, and he says, it's yours. So that's what you've got. That's what you take with you. That's what greets you when you go to the other side. So what do you want to take? What do you want to have greet you? You have the choice. Again, nobody else can do this for you. Again, Ajaan Suwat. He said each of us has one person. In other words, we have ourselves that we're really responsible for. You might say, well, I'm responsible for other members of my family, other responsibilities I have out in society. But the really big issue is inside. You can do only so much for other people on that level. Other people can do only so much for you. The real work has to be your work. And if you can't be true to this one person that you're responsible for, who are you going to be true to? That's the self as the governing principle. Then there's the world as the governing principle. This is not the world you ordinarily think about. The world of commerce, the world of the media. It's the world of people who meditate. Some of those meditators have psychic powers, and some of them can read your mind. If they see you falling away from the path, what are they going to think? Fortunately, these people tend to be people of compassion. They're not just going to judge you as bad, but they really are concerned about you. Here you are. You've started on the path, and now you're falling away. What are you doing to yourself? Think about what their perspective would be, especially those who've already gained awakening. They've seen how good awakening is. As Ajahn Mahabua once said, if you could take awakening out and show it to other people, nobody would want anything else. Nothing else would be able to sell in any market anywhere. People would just be going for awakening. Awakened people have seen that, and they look at you as you're making your effort to go there. They want to encourage you. They would be behind you if they could. But if you fall away, what are they going to think? This should give you a sense of healthy shame and stir up also your sense of honor. Here you are, a human being. You have these abilities. Why are you not making use of them? The texts talk about people who have virtues that are pleasing to the noble ones. Well, the whole path is pleasing to the noble ones. You think about their standards and how it would be good to live up to their standards. We live in this world So often, we're motivated by what other people think of us. Well, think about them. You don't need to think about what your boss thinks about you or what your neighbors think about you. Think about what the noble ones think about you, because they're the ones who have your true well-being in mind, at heart. So that's the world as a governing principle. Then there's the Dhamma as a governing principle. Think about how fortunate you are that you live in a place where the Dhamma is available. The people in the Buddha's time, on first hearing the Dhamma, would exclaim at how magnificent it was. The things that used to be murky are now clear. Things that were in the dark are now brought to light. Things that were overturned, in other words, all upside down, have now been turned upright. Now, this Dhamma is true at all times, but it's not available at all times. It's not being taught at all times. So when you found the Dhamma, take advantage of the opportunity, because you don't know how much longer that opportunity is going to last. So these are ways of motivating yourself, of keeping your promise to yourself. The world is too much with us. That's a line from Wordsworth. And he was talking about the world of commerce. It's just too oppressive. It fills up too much of our minds. They're getting so, they want the whole educational system to be geared toward commerce. Here the Buddha's offering an alternative educational system, one that's geared toward your genuine needs, the things that only you can do for yourself. Take advantage of that opportunity. So whether you think in terms of yourself, think in terms of the world, or think in terms of the Dhamma, there are lots of good reasons for making a good promise to yourself and then keeping it and making it a point of honor. Realize this is a genuine expression of compassion. In light of Ajaan Suwat's statement that the only person we really have in this world is ourselves, you want to look after yourself wisely. There was a monk in Thailand who boiled the Buddhist teaching down to don't be selfish. In Thai that was Ya Hen Kai Tua, which means don't look after yourself. Don't be concerned about yourself. Ajaan Suwat would argue with that. He'd say, if you're really concerned with yourself in the right way, then other people will benefit. After all, you're not going to harm them if you really are wise in how you look after yourself. So look after yourself wisely. The people around you will benefit. They may not benefit as much as you do, but then who else can look after you? You're not totally on your own. The Dhamma is there to support you. The wise people of the world are there to encourage you. But if you don't do the work, nobody else can do it for you. So keep at it. Learn how to keep motivating yourself so that when you hit dry periods, when things are really hard, or at other times when nothing much is happening, everything seems pretty peaceful. Whatever the situation, realize there's work to be done. There's work that you can do, and it's all good work. Timeless Dhamma. When we're practicing the Dhamma, observing the precepts, developing concentration and discernment, we're following a path that was set out more than 2,500 years ago. The reason we're still following it is because it addresses a problem that hasn't changed. It's not as if what was designed to deal with a particular problem that came up in one culture or one part of the world It doesn't apply to our culture or our part of the world. As the Buddha said, when he first conceived the desire to go out into the forest to find his way, it was in response to things he noticed in his life that we have in our lives as well. He noticed that he was subject to aging, subject to illness, subject to death, and that if he were to try to find a happiness in things that are also subject to aging, illness, and death, that happiness wouldn't last. He also noticed that if he, when he was young, took pride in his youth, that wouldn't be fitting, because someday he was going to be old, just like all the old people he saw around him. It wasn't fitting that he looked down on them. If he took pride in his health, again it wouldn't be fitting, because someday he'd be subject to illness. If he took pride in the fact he was still alive, well, someday he was going to die. So this pride wasn't appropriate. These are the facts that the Dhamma is aimed at dealing with. The fact that we want happiness, but aging, illness, and death stand in the way. Now, those reflections we chanted just now didn't stop at aging, illness, and death. They also moved on to separation, which is pretty much more of the same. But the fifth reflection, I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, points the way out. If we're going to find any happiness that lies beyond aging, illness, death, and separation, it's going to depend on straightening out our actions, finding a path of action that can lead beyond. This is what the basic elements of the path, virtue, concentration, and discernment, are all about. The Buddha's notion of action covers not just physical action or acts of speech, but also acts of mind. If you want to find a way that leads to true happiness, you'll have to train all areas of action, in particular, the acts of the mind, because this is where everything comes from. This is what the training is aimed at. We observe the precepts because it helps us to keep our intentions in line, keep them consistent. We realize that if our happiness depends on someone else's misery or on causing harm to other people, that happiness can't last. It's a very pragmatic observation. After all, other people want happiness too, want. There's the passage where King Pasenadi is his inner apartment with his queen, and he asks her, "Is there anyone you love more than yourself?" He's probably expecting her to say, "Yes, Your Majesty, you." But she says, "No. And how about you? Is there anybody you love more than yourself?" Well, no, he has to admit. That's the end of the romantic interlude. So the king leaves the palace and goes to see the Buddha. And the Buddha says, "What she said is true. If you look all over the world, you'll find no one you would love more than yourself. And in the same way, other people love themselves more than anyone else." From this, his conclusion isn't that you should just go ahead and work for your own happiness. The hell with everybody else. Instead, he notes that given the fact that everyone loves him or herself, you can't base your happiness in their misery because they'll try to destroy it. So you have to take their happiness into the considerations. At the very least, don't harm them. This is what the precepts are all about. You take the precepts as a promise to yourself that you're not going to harm anyone, and you try your best to stick with it, because you know the mind has lots of different intentions. it can wander all over the place and make a determination 1 minute. And 2 minutes later, it has totally forgotten and is doing something else entirely. You have to make a vow to yourself, a promise to yourself that you're not going to harm anyone by killing, stealing, engaging in illicit sex, lying, or engaging in any of the forms of wrong speech or taking intoxicants. You set up that intention, and then you have to develop mindfulness and alertness to maintain it. This is where training of the precepts begins to shade into training of the mind. Without mindfulness and alertness, you forget the precepts and you don't really notice what you're doing. Then it's very easy to break the precepts. So you've got to work on developing mindfulness to remember the precepts and alertness to keep watch over your actions. This is precisely the role of concentration. As they say in the texts, right concentration takes as its themes the establishing of mindfulness, which requires mindfulness, alertness, and ardency to keep watch over, for instance, the body in and of itself. The in and of itself here means that you simply look at the fact that you've got a body here, and you can focus on any one of its aspects. Like right now, you're focusing on the breath coming in, going out. You're not concerned with how your body manages in the world, whether it's good looking or strong enough or resilient enough to take on the tasks you want to take on. You just look at the fact you've got a body here. Try to look at the raw materials of your experience on their own terms and make a practice of sticking with it. In this case, you keep remembering to stay with the breath each time it comes in, each time it goes out. That's mindfulness. Alertness is watching the breath and also watching over your mind to make sure it stays with the breath. If it moves off, you bring it right back. Moves off again, bring it right back again. This is ardency. You really stick with it and try to do it right. When you're with the breath, maintaining your focus, ardency means trying to be as sensitive as possible to make it pleasant. After all, in the Buddha's instructions for breath meditations, a lot of space is devoted to making the breath easeful. It's a training. Once you get sensitive to the breath to see whether it's short or long, then you train yourself to be aware of the whole body as you breathe in, the whole body as you breathe out. Then you calm the effects of the breath on the body. That makes you sensitive to rapture, sensitive to pleasure. You become sensitive to how your perceptions of the breath affects rapture and pleasure. In other words, what ways of thinking about the breath can give rise to feelings of intense rapture? Thinking of the breath as a quality of the whole body, not just the air coming in and out of the lungs, changes the way you relate to the breathing process and enables you breathe in a way that's more satisfying throughout the body, throughout the whole nervous system, out to every pore. This makes you more sensitive to how your perceptions affect your experience of even simple physical processes like the breath. This turns your awareness more and more inward, to the way the mind moves, to the way the mind's intentions and perceptions, i.e., the labels it puts on things, have an impact on how you experience things, in particular your experience of pleasure and pain, freedom and bondage. The Buddha's breath meditation instructions are divided into 16 steps, arranged in 4 tetrads. In the first 2 tetrads, the pattern is to sensitize yourself to a certain aspect of fabrication, either physical fabrication or mental fabrication, and then to try to calm the fabrication. That points you to the mind. That's the theme of the next two tetrads. In each of those cases, it's more a matter of getting sensitive to certain aspects of the mind, what state it's in, what raw materials it uses to fabricate experience in each of those cases. Then you try to liberate yourself from any sense of bondage, any sense of being tied down. This is how concentration shades into discernment. The Buddha never makes a clear distinction between concentration practices and discernment practices. Basically, the more sensitive you get in your concentration, there you have it, right there. The themes for discernment, the themes for gaining insight. In this way you see how, for instance, how craving can cause suffering, and you notice that the things you crave are really not worth the craving. No matter how much you try to create happiness out of these inconstant, stressful, not self aspects of your life, it's bound to fall apart. It's like building a house out of frozen ice cream. As long as the ice cream stays cold, it's going to serve as a house. But then it begins to melt. Or even worse, a house out of frozen meat. You can stay in the house only as long as it's cold outside. But when it begins to heat up, you've got to get out. So as you get more and more sensitive in the concentration, that leads you to develop a greater sense of dispassion toward the things you've been struggling for in life. Fortunately, as you learn how to let go of these things, the mind opens up to a totally different dimension, a happiness that's unconditioned. And that's the solution to the problem, because this happiness lies beyond the aggregates of the body. Aggregates in the mind lies beyond all conditions entirely. So it's not in any place where it can be touched by aging, illness, or death. This is why the Buddha's teachings have lasted all these years. Even though he often talked about the inconstancy of things, it's not because everything is inconstant, simply that we look for happiness in inconstant places. There is a happiness that is constant. There is a happiness that lies beyond all the change in the world. So some things change, some things don't. The basic human problem doesn't change. It's still there. We still suffer from aging, illness, and death. No matter how much they've come up with new medicines, they haven't been able to stop these processes. At the same time, the path beyond these things hasn't changed either. This is why the Buddha said the Dhamma is Akaliko. It's timeless. If we devote ourselves timelessly to the practice, in other words, we're willing to take on whatever is required in the practice, we can touch that timeless Dhamma as well. If we make demands and say, nowadays, things have to be this way, things have to be that way, we miss out on what's timeless. We stay stuck in time. Being stuck in time brings us what? Aging, illness, and death over and over again. So this is our opportunity to find something timeless. As long as we don't take the particulars of our lives or our attitudes or our views and let them get in the way, we can have a share in that timelessness as well.